So we're here. We're testing out the new Ben Glass Law podcast studio, and my partners have been having a lot of folks in, and I thought I'd have Michele Lewane. And Michele is our of counsel in workers' compensation. She's got her main office down in Richmond. We're here today in the Fairfax office, riffing because you're in town to do what?
Yes,
lobbying.
I am in town to do some lobbying up at the Hill.
And my question to you was, I didn't know that the federal government had anything to do with state workers' compensation. So tell me about that.
It doesn't, except for what we're trying to do is try to do some national mandatory minimums. Every state law is obviously very different, but trying to get some type of routine standard minimum across state lines.
What is the state of workers' compensation in Virginia? Is it because I know that some states it's like awful. I heard like Florida's awful, right?
Yes, Florida's awful. Supposedly Texas is awful. Ohio and Pennsylvania are awesome. So, I guess it just depends. In general, Virginia is considered the lowest cost for workers' comp for employers. And
it doesn't sound good for claimants.
That does not, and it is not. Actually, a defense attorney once told me, and I do believe this it is very, very difficult to get workers' comp, but once you're on workers' comp, you get a lot of benefits. So we have a high comp rate as a max. You have lifetime medical benefits. In many states, you only have benefits for a short period of time. But, again, someone fell off a ladder the other day. That's not covered by workers' comp. That shocks people. People fall downstairs, not covered by workers' comp. You're leaving the building, so you're not at the place of the premises.
I just read in the newspaper today a guy got hit by lightning. And they said, and there's an opinion that doesn't cover. How come?
Act of God, yes. That because you could be struck by lightning anywhere.
Okay, so
not unique to the job.
So that's what the workers' comp system is set up so that, as I understand it, so that claimants don't have to prove necessarily the employer did anything wrong, but
correct.
Simply in quotes, air quotes, that something happened to them while they were working, and it wasn't lightning.
Yes. If a coworker runs your foot over with a forklift, okay, and it's an accident, it would be covered. But if they're running you over with a forklift because they don't like you, it won't be, because that's outside of the realm of employment.
And if you are in the factory and you're having forklift races and messing around, that's probably not covered either.
That's not. That's horseplay.
Does that happen? Horseplay?
Yes, it
does. Where people get hurt?
Yeah. One of the worst ones was someone shocked. I forget what you call those panels, but the ambulance, those electric shock panels. Yeah. Someone shocked someone like that and killed them, and not covered by workers' comp because that was horseplay.
Oh man.
So, but generally speaking, horseplay or personal vendettas obviously are not covered.
So you go to the office holiday party and you get drunk and fall down, or somebody acts inappropriately towards you. But it's the office party. It's sponsored by the company. Everything is bought by the company. That's not workers' comp either, is it? Or maybe.
Maybe not if you're drunk. Not if you're drunk, but if like if your boss, I guess, says, slice up the roast beef and you cut your finger off, that might be covered.
Even if you're like a factory worker and that's not part of your daily job.
Yes, if you were required to be there.
That's cool.
Now, there are some functions, again, these days actually a lot of them are like non-obligatory type functions, but they look at you funny if you don't show. Those are the bad ones, because then people are playing flag football, breaking their ankle, and because they weren't required to play the flag football, but they were required to actually kind of maybe be there.
Gotcha.
That wouldn't be covered.
So one of the reasons that you and I got together is because our practices are complementary. We do a lot of personal injury. We do long-term disability litigation. We do some medical malpractice. And you're a pure workers' compensation attorney. And is that what you've always done?
No. but it has been for about past 12 years. I used to do domestic, criminal, and workers' comp. Okay, and then for about 10 years, and then I just slowly got away from the criminal and the domestic. But I'm actually kind of glad I had that perspective, because it's amazing how, people come to you with problems, and they're saying, I'm getting my workers' comp and my child support's behind. Okay, well, I know how to quickly say what they need to do for that child support issue.
Right.
So it's kind of nice to have a little bit of a wider perspective, but then now knowing that I never have to try DUI again.
Yeah. Well, I think half the work we actually do here with clients is life coaching stuff. So,
yes.
So they come with one problem, but it actually, as you said, it overlaps and interlinks with everything else in their life.
Yes.
Oftentimes, and I think good lawyers with a diverse background and have been around a while, just been living life, can really help folks. They come for the legal, and they leave oftentimes like inspired. All right, your folks are injured, my folks are injured. A lot of times their lives are miserable, and they leave with some spirit of there's something else out there.
Yes.
So I'm sure that a lot of people ask you, they call up and they've never had a claim before. They've been injured. Someone has said, you got to file a workers' comp claim, and you might want to speak to a workers' comp lawyer, and they want to know, like, what's it worth, or what am I going to get? What's a settlement? So walk us through that conversation you might have with someone who's really is a claimant. They don't know anything. They're starting.
Yes, I will. So the biggest, people ask that question a lot. They'll say,
sure,
what is the average back injury worth? What is the average knee replacement worth? And that's, again, something you've actually taught me is that is not the 10 questions you should ask versus the 10 questions you are asking. So people are asking that question, but that is not, there is no average back injury, because how a case is valued to settle is first your average weekly wage. Okay, so and that's a formula, but basically someone who's making $100,000 a year with the identical back injury is going to make a whole heck of a lot more than someone only making $10,000 a year with the identical back injury. So it's based on your lost wages, and so your future lost wages is based on your on this calculated formula of what your average weekly wage is. Okay.
So that whole system is set up to kind of, but not exactly, replace your earning capacity, now understanding that you're not getting up to go to the office or to the workplace, because I know that you're not getting anywhere near as much a check in workers' comp as you would from your employer.
Correct.
And then covering, I guess, all of, you said, medical bills potentially for life.
Right.
All your bills?
No. but I generally use the term lifetime medical benefits, but then there's 600 exceptions to the rule.
Yeah.
But in general, yes, as long as the doctor says it's reasonable, necessary treatment going into the future. And usually at the time of settlement, that's usually an issue of pain management. Okay, so people are all upset and worried. I've had 3 surgeries, and now I'm finally barely making it, but the carrier's already paid for the 3 surgeries, so there is no value in or even necessity of looking back. It's only looking forward.
Yeah.
So if you're
So it's not like what you would think about in a car accident where there's a value for pain and suffering.
Right.
Or I don't even know if there's a value for scarring. We can talk about that. But
60 weeks.
Okay, so pretty much everything is scheduled, or it is a formula.
Yes.
All right. So why do they need a lawyer?
Because of the exceptions. I mean, because it's not your wages. For example, let's just go with wages again, since we're talking about wages. Your wages is a formula. It's 2/3 of your wages, but the the degree is, well, are you going to be out of work for another year? Are you going to be out of work for 10 years? Are you going to be out of work forever? So the lawyer is arguing you're going to be out forever, and knows how to figure out what the courts are looking for to determine that. Okay. Future wages, medical, it's the same thing. It's like, I know based on experience what happens, with, let's say, a back injury. It's almost, unfortunately, I don't know if it's fortunate or unfortunate, but it's the same thing every time. You have physical therapy, it doesn't work. You do injections, it doesn't work. You have surgery, it doesn't work. They're putting you on narcotics, then you're dependent. And
a full endorsement for the medical industry and back pain from Michele Lewane.
Yes. So, I know what certain things are going to cost. Okay.
So you talked about court. So it's like juries and witnesses and experts and that sort of stuff.
Experts, yes.
Yeah.
You have vocational rehab experts. You have life care planner experts. And then you have what keeps things cheaper for
the employers, because you already told us that
the
employers pay the lease. So.
They do pay the lease. What keeps things is that medical records can just be submitted into court, so you don't need the treating physician to come to the hearing and testify. So I can just get I call them my check in the box questionnaires. So they'll fill those things out for free. So I'll ask them maybe 10 questions, and they're saying yes, and they're used to them, and I do it that way. In much more complicated cases, I'm getting telephone conferences with them and getting them to write, let's say, a 1-page report or 2-page report, and that's being submitted into court. So that's how we get the medical records, and we get the doctors,
in the
on our side, saying the right legal terms that need to be said.
Yeah. So in our world, in the ERISA long-term disability world, the insurance company is often sending the boxes of records out to doctors who sit at home, likely in their underwear, I can say that,
Yes.
and submitting reports. Is that in the workers' compensation world in Virginia? Is that done? Like record reviews by defense
peer
doctors?
review, they call them, yes.
They call them peer review because it sounds better than...
Yes, that's what they call them.
Can I say whore? No.
I call them IMEs, independent. They call them independent medical evaluations, but I call them insurance medical evaluations. Yeah. Okay, so the IMEs happen constantly. They cost about $5,000.
We're in the wrong business.
Yes, they're about $5,000, and they
like for a visit and a report. Okay. And there are some doctors that's all they do. So sometimes I go, yes, my client is freaking out, and I'm going, yes, he's going to, Dr. So-and-so, and I know what he's going to say. He's going to say the same thing he said in all 50 of my other cases, and that's okay because everybody knows his reputation. Right.
Now, it's the ones that are sometimes on one side or sometime on the other that make you nervous. But
so in your world then, how powerful when the workers' compensation board, whatever the adjudicator is, we'll talk about that, when they're considering reports from treating physicians and considering reports from insurance doctors, are the treating physicians' opinions weighed more heavily?
Yes.
Entitled to any legal deference? Or?
Yes.
Okay.
Technically, a treating physician's opinion is given greater weight, but there's all kinds of things. Like, let's just say, again, it's all in the details, because the treating physician, let's say that's just a family doctor, and they have a neurosurgeon specialist saying something, then
right.
Then you're out of luck, right? So then you need you need your own, okay? What I routinely do is when I get that IME, I immediately send it to my treating physician and have them discount it, okay? And that, I think, is what saves me, because sometimes if the most recent medical record is given great weight too, or is more relevant.
Right.
So if they saw, they haven't seen their treating doctor in 3 months, and then they have the IME, that's how it goes. But actually, I want to tell you this story.
Michele, Story time.
Story
Here we
time.
go.
Yes. No, I had a client, and I might even cry. I had a client yesterday screaming and crying how happy because we won this case. Okay, so we had to go down to Danville, and this horrible Northern Virginia lawyer who shall remain unnamed,
Who also went to Danville?
who also drove to
wow.
Danville. Okay, and she did some horrible things. Like, for example, she set up my client's deposition. Okay, my client has post-traumatic stress disorder, and so reliving this thing is not a good thing. And so sets up her deposition for 2.5 hours. Could have been done in 30 minutes. But she did all these horrible things, and I hope she doesn't.
You're going to tell me off
video.
camera who this was.
I sure will. I will. So, but anyway, she had done, every year she does an IME. Every year the IME was in my client's favor. Okay, this year, okay, this is IME number 4, it wasn't. So she cut her benefits off in November, and it took till yesterday for her to get her benefits back up.
Yeah.
So thank goodness she had family and friends, or she would have. She had no income from mid-November until this is April. So it was horrible. So I had to go to court, and I had to prove the treating physician. So look, I had actually gotten the treating physician and her counselor to write lots of longer reports. Because I didn't, she lives in North Carolina, so I really wasn't even sure of this IME, but the opinion came out, and it was because the other IMEs were in her favor, and these that saved it. But it just made me feel so good that we won.
Yeah, and you can't, I mean, we had a guy the other day in our disability case, same thing, he gets his benefits terminated, lost his house.
Yeah.
Lost his house. And there's nothing in the law that, and later we got the decision overturned.
Right.
He got his benefits, but nothing in the law that allows him or his family to recover from the distress and the loss of losing his house. Well, good. I'm glad that you got her benefits. And I always say when there's someone when there's some lawyer who's really miserable, like you'd probably be miserable too if you had her life. I mean, if you just can imagine her life, it's.
Trust me. I mean, I went back to the office and vented because some of the
screamed, beat against the walls.
Well, some of the tactics were just so close to unethical,
cheesy,
cheesy, and. You know, and I like being practical and trying to cut to the chase, and there's none of that. So I had to do the academia thing and go to a trial. But, you know, if I had lost my client, I don't know what I would have been so upset for my client, because she's been my client for 4 or 5 years because I've been representing her through all of
these. So talk about that, because earlier we talked about settlement, but now you're describing a trial, and it's not a jury or anything like that. So what actually goes on procedurally at like this woman's trial? What happens?
Pretty much what you think of as a trial. It's called a hearing. It's in front of a deputy commissioner, which is not officially a judge. I tell my clients it's a judge. You go to Danville, and it doesn't even look like a courtroom. It's just an office building with a table, and everyone's sitting around the table. Okay.
Why Danville? What was?
Because that's where the accident occurred. Okay, so it's where the accident occurred. So that's why we have our Fairfax office, is because for accidents, and there's a Manassas, and there are hearing officers here, but the main one is in Richmond. So you put the person gets on the stand, and you ask them questions, and there's cross-examination, and it's, you know, there's no opening or closing statement, so there's no drama.
I was going to ask you if it's dramatic, but maybe there's no jury.
No jury, you know, and then the commissioners sometimes looking at you, rolling their eyes because you're trying to prove a point, but they know, do you remember there's no jury? You don't need to
keep going.
Right?
Lawyer stuff. So, do they then decide that day?
No. So I went to court about 4 weeks ago on this or maybe 3 weeks ago, 3 or 4 weeks ago, and we just get the decision today. So then what we do is we hold our breath because they have 30 days to note an appeal. So so we just hold our breath praying that they don't appeal. If they appeal it, then we're going up to the full commission and so forth. But the irony is I had a hearing in February and I still don't have the opinion.
Yeah. Well,
and that client has been without money since August.
I won't name any names, but we're on month 6 waiting for a federal judge in one of our cases to issue a decision.
And I can
no
tell you,
names there.
Yeah, no names here. And I can tell you, there are some commissioners that get them out within 2 weeks,
Right.
and some that 6-9 months.
Okay, so this opinion that says you win, and assuming they don't appeal it, or if they do, you win the appeal. Does that end the case? Is she getting like a lump sum of money and her
Yes.
meds?
Yes. So what happens is it goes backwards. So you get your back pay from whenever. So like my case that I'm talking about, my FedEx case that I'm talking about, that's since August, he will get a check. If we win, he'll get a check from August going forward. Okay, so a lump sum. Okay, and that's how the attorney fee is paid. So it's not really coming out of their pocket.
Right.
Okay, and then they get a weekly check thereafter up to 500 weeks and medical benefits continuing. So they would have, like, let's say regular health insurance paid the bills, back health insurance, workers' comp would have to reimburse the regular health insurance backwards and then start paying going forward.
So let's talk for a little bit about, one thing, you said that you've been representing this poor lady for 4.5 years. So is that typical, that length of time?
Okay, my oldest case is my favorite client in the world. Well, not really. I like a lot of my clients, but he's one of my favorite clients. He had a traumatic brain injury in 1979.
Wow.
And he has been my client for at least 10 years because he has a serious brain injury, and he's almost 90 years old. So he's your client now because he's still getting medical? He's still getting well, that's the trick.
Right.
Are they paying his medicals? I'm always fighting
That's
for
why
him
you're
to get.
still his client.
Yeah, I represent. I love his doctor, Dr. Verhul in Virginia. In Richmond. Don't know where his office is, but he's a great doctor. But he has really taken care of him well because there's lots of complications when you're old, aging, and with a traumatic brain injury because it's and so they're trying to say, it's because he's elderly is why he has this, why he needs this medication.
It's not related to the
his anti-seizure medicine.
injury.
No,
Right.
He needs anti-seizure medicine due to the traumatic injury back in the 70s.
Right. So in a case like that, how do you get paid now?
Well, that one I don't really get paid on, but that's my choice.
Yeah, good for you.
I have gotten paid, but he's my.
He's your favorite. You already said he's your favorite.
Really, I am so offended at insurance companies who. His wife died. Okay, so his daughter tries to take care of him, but she's an hour and a half away. That insurance company denies him certain things, and it could kill him, and they don't care.
Yeah.
And so I just have to be on them to get his medications approved and different things like that.
We all have those cases where when you have a successful practice as you do, and as we do here, where you just take on some of these and continue to take them on, even if you're not getting paid, just because it's the right thing to do. And the fact you've got a good practice allows you to do this, where some other lawyer either might not have the interest or frankly might not have the resources to devote to clients when they're really not getting paid anymore. Awesome. Well, let's talk a little bit about the interrelationship. I want to talk about workers' compensation. I imagine some of your clients are getting Social Security disability.
Yes.
And then my world, which is long-term disability policies. I've seen some things. I've seen how workers' comp lawyers can screw up the long-term disability claim, inadvertently by not thinking.
That might be me accidentally.
No.
Hopefully not.
No, but it's something important to talk about.
Right,
so
yes.
when you settle here's what I've seen. I've seen settlements of workers' comp cases that went beyond the workers' comp case to really a severance, termination, dissolution agreement, which then, let's throw in the waiver of all other claims you might have. Oh, nobody thinks about the guy's getting or is applying for long-term disability under the insurance policy for long-term disability.
Got it.
And then that insurance policy company goes, oh, wait, he signed this waiver with his work comp lawyer. And I go, well, I hope he didn't.
Well, that is actually maybe not that particular, but it's very common in the sense of to have a release. Now, what's in the release is might vary, but what happens is with workers' comp and short-term or long-term disability is you're on workers' comp, and you can't get both at the same time. So what happens is if your case is denied, your workers' comp claim is denied, you can get your short-term disability, which then converts into the long-term disability. And then you're settling your workers' comp case. What they always require is a resignation. So they always want you to resign because they don't want you, let's just use a back injury again, is if you are... they want you to resign so that you aren't going to go back into that employer's place of business and go, oh, I hurt my back again. And then they've just paid you $100,000 and then they're not, there they are on the hook again because aggravations of pre-existing conditions in workers' comp are covered. So it doesn't matter if you have a bad back, if you hurt it for real in an accident at work, it's going to be covered. So resignations are pretty common. Then they start doing these global releases, and then they start doing these 3-page things that are crazy. And I'm sure that's when they're slipping those long-term disability claims in there.
Yeah. So, I mean, my advice on that would be every workers' comp lawyer who's faced with a release where the client may potentially have a long-term disability claim or something else, even their third-party accident claim, should be having this looked at by like multiple lawyers. I mean, it's a shame, but again, I've had cases where it screwed the long-term disability benefit, and the client is thinking, well, I'm still going to get my $2,500 a month long-term disability at age 65 or 66, and it's gone.
Yeah,
I don't mean
bad.
to make you get nervous or anything.
That does
that's
a
why we're
little
working
bit
together.
because, well, yes. But what's interesting is there is no waiver on you mentioned something about personal injury. Everybody wants a piece of the pie. So how it works is you can't get Social Security and workers' comp kind of at this. You can't double dip. You're not going to be able to get. Everybody gets a credit for something. Same thing with long-term disability, workers' comp. One thing with the personal injury is workers' comp gets themselves paid off. So if workers' comp has paid you $100,000 in your workers' comp claim, and then you have an auto accident because this was an auto accident, and you get $100,000, you're not going to get a dime out of that because workers' comp is just basically going to get reimbursed.
Right. So to be clear, if you have an auto accident while on the job, hit by somebody else who was not a co-employee or something, right?
Right.
Yeah, you're right. So the personal injury lawyers need to understand a little bit, at least, the workers' compensation lien scheme. And oftentimes work with somebody like you or call somebody like you to go, hey, what's this deal?
Right.
And then the two law firms work together to figure out what's in the best interest of the client, right?
Right. And back to the long-term disability, that's actually it's a great benefit because if someone has long-term disability and workers' comp and their workers' comp is denied, you can put language in the settlement documents to protect the long-term disability, which is what I have done before, just to clarify. And so then the client is getting... Since we're filming, right. Right, just so you know. But then what it is like the client double dipping because they get their workers' comp benefits. Sure. They don't have to pay back long-term. If we go to court and win, they have to pay back long-term disability or short-term disability, whatever has been paid, okay? They have to reimburse them. But if we settle it, then they keep on getting their short-term or long-term disability benefits, and they've gotten this lump sum through the workers' comp insurance carrier.
Let's go back. guy gal gets hurt on the job, we talked about, you said, why do we need a lawyer? Well, because of all the loopholes and the exceptions and things like that. What do you, and this is sort of self-serving, but let's make it fair. What should a claimant do you think, in terms of researching to find an appropriate workers' compensation attorney for them?
Truthfully, I think reviews, only because that's what I do. I was just shopping for something yesterday on Amazon, and
was it clothes, Bob? I mean, was she looking for new clothes?
I was looking for clothes. I was looking for my nephew's bathing suit, because he's growing, and it's so. But that's the first thing I do is I look at reviews. Yeah. I mean, I don't think. There are a lot of good workers' comp lawyers out there, and there are a lot of bad ones. But the thing is, I think the average consumer is never going to know the difference, okay? And just like doctors, some have good bedside manner, some have horrible bedside manner, but who do you want cutting on you is a whole nother story, right?
Ask the nurses in the OR. Yes. They'll tell you.
Yeah.
The post-op nurses.
So I would look at reviews, and then I would look at maybe what other lawyers think about them.
So going to a place like Avo and look at the endorsements, right?
Mm-hmm.
Right.
And then experience, obviously, and then someone who does it all the time, truthfully, because if you're doing it all the time, when the laws change.
The legal profession industry really has become specialized and niched down.
Yes,
it's so, in part because we're overregulated society, right? So we've got too many laws. I could never keep up with what workers' comp law is, and that's why you're here. And we know our own limits. So I guess that's a good question to ask as you're trolling websites and stuff, and someone who, I guess if they're in a small town in Western Virginia and the lawyer does 27 different things, that's probably okay. That they that's just the way life is. But if you're in Richmond or Northern Virginia, we have specialists here in all different fields. I mean,
yes.
Just because somebody gets you a good result in a drunk driving case.
So, I mean, I beg to differ just a teeny bit with you.
No, you're not allowed. This is my podcast, and you cannot differ.
But if you're like in Southwest Virginia and there are no workers' comp lawyers, and there are some, so I'm not saying there isn't, but if you, the way technology is, I have clients all across the state.
Okay,
and I don't even see them. I talk to them on the phone. I Zoom with them. And I'm the one driving.
You dance with them, or no? That's
Zumba.
Oh,
right.
Zumba.
So, but like with like me, I drove to Danville, because I had a hearing there. But rarely, or is that happening? It's But if you feel comfortable with that, I mean, a lot of people want the one-on-one. So I get that too.
You've written a book or books?
I have.
Tell us about
2 books.
Yeah. What are they? I've
written one book years ago, which I think I'm on my 5th or 6th edition now, because again the laws change, and I'm like, I can't leave that out there; it's malpractice. So I have to change
on tape.
I have to change chapters and different things, and that's called The Ultimate Guide to Workers' Compensation in Virginia. And that basically is a guideline to help the injured worker. The problem in Virginia is the injured worker has the burden of proof. Okay? The injured worker has to do everything. The insurance company, there is no bad faith. Bad faith is rampant in workers' comp with the insurance companies.
So if they lie, cheat, and steal, it's okay.
If they lie, cheat, and steal, it doesn't matter. If you
catch them.
Yes.
They just still owe you just the benefit, right? There's no extra.
Well, not even. I mean, the statute of limitations. Let's put it this way: the worst thing is they go, "Oh, we're paying everything. Don't you worry about a thing. We're going to pay everything." So they do for 2 years and 1 day. Then the statute of limitation is run, and you never filed a form called a claim for benefits because you never knew you had to, because they were paying you the whole time. They were paying all the doctor bills.
And they don't need to tell you Because they're not lawyers
Right.
and they don't
Now,
have any duty.
Yes, but there is now a little exception. They just created an exception for that.
You know everything.
But in general, but I'm just giving you an example of,
Yeah.
of the insurance companies are going, dag, they don't get to use that technicality anymore to ruin people's lives.
There
So
goes those rates for employers. I mean,
there
they're
go
just
the
gonna
rates are going to go
skyrocket.
up because
Yeah.
now they can't voluntarily pay. And I mean, because think about it. Again, they're doing this 24/7. So the injured worker has a burden of proof, and they have to file this claim form. So that's what the book is about. Is again, you go, my employer's treating me horrible. I'm just going to quit. Don't quit. Get fired. And they're like, no, I don't want that on my my resume. I'm getting fired. No, if you quit, you're going to lose all your benefits. I mean, people don't know,
Right.
things. Don't you want, so the employer comes to you and says, I think you need to, find a better job. And they go, okay. And they quit. And then they're done with their benefits. So this book is to help them with that. And then, especially even up here with Inova and all that, there's a lot of special. So my second book is specifically for nurses. So the ultimate guide for workers' comp for nurses, because nurses have a lot of a little bit harder things to deal with. They have their wages are higher, so a lot of times they're unfortunately not even getting 2/3 of their wages. They're being capped at
Oh, really?
even less than that. And nurses are getting hurt a lot with lifting patients and that type of thing.
I have I think he's a radiology nurse or tech, and actually this machine is like really hard to push around, this fluoroscopy machine. And she injured her shoulder, and it's a long-term disability claim. But yeah, we ask our nurses to do a lot.
Yes. And if a patient is going to, and so then they put, a lot of times with nurses, they put them back on the floor. And they're going to go, well, you don't have to do patient care. Yeah. Right. When that
Tell the guy's on the floor trying to make his way to the bathroom. And you got to pick
right.
him
You
up
go, whoops.
in the middle of the night. Right. I want to switch gears.
All right.
You have a very successful practice. You're married to a great guy. Let's talk about your own sort of personal habits. Like what are the things that Michele Lewane does to make the family role, the business role, to have your happy face, to be able to drive to Danville to deal with miserable lawyers? What goes on inside your brain?
Well, I have books on tape, and so I love driving, so that works for there. I'll listen to your tapes.
Audible or books on tape? I mean, really? Is it tape?
Audible or CDs. I mean,
yeah, cool.
Your CDs.
Oh, well, you didn't have to say that.
Yeah, I do. I do. That's when I get caught up, is when I have to drive like that. But so I think keeping things in perspective. So I've had a big lifetime a change in that I'm now an empty nester. So I have one child graduating from college in May, and then my other one's a second year.
Congratulations.
And so it's a different. It's very different priorities, and so it's trying to reinvent ourselves, trying to figure out what we're gonna do next. So we've been doing a lot of traveling. So what I try to do is block time and try not to work on Fridays, and then
the 4-day work week.
Yes, and then try to one of my most important things I try to do is, you calendar your work,
cases, your depositions, all that
but
stuff.
you don't calendar free days or free time. And so, so we just got back from the British Virgin Islands. We were sailing through there.
Awesome.
We're going to Jamaica. We're going to Munich. And then we're going to Israel on a Christian pilgrimage in November. So that's what empty nesters get to do.
Cool. Well, but it also is what successful business owners who've got a business that can keep running while they are gallivanting around the world. So that's cool.
Yes. And I have to think we have a wonderful team, and also just keeping your priorities straight, I think, is what it is. And actually, my husband does help me with.
Did he drive you to Danville?
No,
or did you drive
didn't.
yourself?
I drove myself.
I thought you were the
but
driver.
guess what I did? He drove me up here, and I have my little hotspot, and I'm on my computer, and I'm doing work, And I
So
I
because
settled
today
a
is,
multi-million-dollar case yesterday.
did you?
Yes.
Is it one of ours?
No,
No.
I'm sorry. And so, but
Well-
you do that, and then it's, and then and then you go do your thing that's pro se. You go fight just as hard
Sure.
for the person that has
Sure.
no money.
Well, we're glad to have you as a part of council here, and I know there's depositions and meetings go on. We have workers.
Yes.
We love having people come through the door actually, and seeing the cool space that we have, including the only law firm in Northern Virginia with its own podcast studio.
Yes.
Where we'll be having lots of cool guests. So thanks for coming by. I know you're busy.
Thank
You'll be
you.
staying over at the Hilton Garden Inn or the Marriott. Is he?
We
is he
are.
like cheap
Where are
or?
we staying? We're staying. We're with Willig. I don't know where we're staying, but
Okay.
we're staying at some expensive downtown
Nice.
DC
Nice.
hotel.
And then bribing the lobbying
Right,
tomorrow.
Lobbying,
tomorrow.
bribing,
Yeah.
right?
All right. Well, good.
All
I'm
right,
glad that
thanks.
you were able to drop by.
Yeah.
Continued good
And
luck
thank
with
you,
the
and
practice.
glad
Hopefully,
we're
we
working
answered the
together.
questions that people
Yeah,
want to know
hope
about.
so.
All right. Cool.
Thanks.